You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your AMAC podcast, Better for America. Folks, I want to thank you for joining AMAC and over 2 million American patriots who stand with you, shoulder to shoulder, to help preserve the great America that we love. And today we have a president who really promised us unity, and he has done everything but unify our country, which is very unfortunate. It is true. We have a sitting president who seems to care more about his own power than he does about the American people. Biden is actually ignoring some real facts. Did you know that nearly 70% of Black voters are in favor of voter ID? President Biden ignores these facts. He ignores the fact that over 70% of American people believe that illegal immigration presents a grave threat to the future of our nation. And he ignores the will of the people in states like Texas who need border control measures put in place, including a border wall. President Biden believes that government knows better than you and me. And you know the slogan, "My body, my choice"? That slogan is only good for those who seek abortion, because the same slogan, "My body, my choice," is anti-American if we refuse the COVID vaccine. We actually have a president who believes that Americans, all Americans, should be judged by the color of the pigmentation of their skin, because he guts Martin Luther's dream. When Martin Luther said, "My 4 little children, I dream of a day when my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Biden turns Afghanistan into a nightmarish echo of U.S. exit from South Vietnam. This is something else I want you folks to go to our website, download this article. It was written by Daniel Roman. And I want to share with you this article from our website. American forces are today engaged in a historic route from Afghanistan. Over the last few weeks, the Taliban have gone from controlling a third of the country to nearly 3/4. So imagine that growth. The Taliban, a third of the country, to 3/4 just in a few weeks. Even a Taliban fighter told NBC News that he was shocked at the speed of their advance, and that they were deliberately slowing it to avoid running afoul of the United States. Under Biden, the Taliban can afford to wait because they know that their takeover is merely a matter of logistics. The U.S. will do nothing to stop them, and their only danger is that they advance faster than the U.S. can retreat. And that retreat is fast. The United States pulled out of Bagram Air Base, the largest in the country, and located on the outskirts of Kabul in the middle of the night without telling their Afghan allies who awoke to find the Americans gone after 20 years. They could be forgiven for imagining that Joe Biden wished to treat America's war in Afghanistan as if it had been nothing more than a 20-year-long bad dream. But for everyone else, Afghan and American, it promises to be replaced by a nightmare instead. Geopolitics is driven by balance of power. In conflicts where being on the losing side can be fatal, those who believe their cause is lost have little reason to try and reverse the course of events. Rather, their incentives are to get a leg up on the escaping or to switch sides. So as a consequence, the actual military support offered by the United States to Afghan forces against the Taliban was always far less important than the potential that if the Taliban ever looked like they would take over the country, the U.S. would come back ruthlessly. It was that belief which kept Afghan soldiers in the field. It was also that belief which brought the Taliban to the negotiating table with Donald Trump. They may have known that he genuinely wished to disengage the United States from Afghanistan, much as he had Syria and Iraq, but they also knew that there were limits beyond which Donald Trump would not be pushed. Soleimani learned that lesson the hard way, and the Taliban, as a consequence, understood that if they broke their word, they would face the vengeance of Donald Trump and the United States. Joe Biden carries no such weight. No actions have been undertaken to punish the Taliban violations of ceasefire agreements. No airstrikes have been launched in support of the Afghan army. The United States gives every indication it will be done with Afghanistan when it withdraws, and the message to the Taliban is that all the U.S. wants is for them to coordinate their advance such that the U.S. forces can leave first. When questioned about Afghanistan, Biden replied, "I want to talk about happy things, man."
And I think I met with the Afghan government here in the White House, in the Oval. I think they have the capacity to be able to sustain the government. There's going to have to be, down the road, more negotiations, I suspect. But I am concerned that they deal with the internal issues that they have to be able to generate the kind of support they need nationwide to maintain the government.
President, to follow on that thought on Afghanistan.
I want to talk about happy things, man.
If there is evidence that Kabul is threatened, which some of the intelligence reports have suggested.
That's what he said when he was questioned. The result has not just been the Taliban advance, but the collapse of the Afghan army and state. The Afghans quite rightfully fear that the Biden administration has cut a deal with the Taliban that leaves them out of the equation, and that once the U.S. forces are gone, the U.S. will do nothing to help them. So as a consequence, they are either switching sides or running, with the whole Afghan units dissolving. So this process should bring back memories of another debacle, also triggered by the determination of Democratic politicians to extricate themselves from a war which the Democrat Party had supported. That is, the communist takeover of Vietnam in 1975. Few American veterans or AMAC members can forget the images of Saigon on April 30th, 1975, as tens of thousands of desperate Vietnamese, including spouses of Americans, and those who had risked their lives fighting communism were held back by armed Marines at the gates of the U.S. Embassy. Helicopters carried off the American staff, and the sacrifices of nearly 70,000 dead American servicemen and more than a decade of fighting had been rendered meaningless in a matter of weeks by the advance of the North Vietnamese army. And now, the U.S. is making plans for evacuating its Kabul embassy. No less a figure than Karl Marx, the patron saint of the left, remarked that history repeats, first as a tragedy, then as a farce. What happened in Vietnam was a tragedy for America, for the Vietnamese people. What the Johnson administration had failed to achieve with 500,000 troops, the Nixon administration had achieved with less than 50,000, forcing the North Vietnamese into accepting a ceasefire in the Paris Accords of 1973. The agreement was far from perfect, but so was the ceasefire that ended the Korean War in 1953. North Korea remained armed and did forego its claim to conquer its southern border, South Korea, in 1953, like South Vietnam in 1973 and Afghanistan today. Afghanistan was an imperfect government. It was full of corruption and infighting, but the agreement bought time, and in time, freedom and American involvement led to economic prosperity, liberalization, and democracy. South Korea became one of the world's most prosperous states. In 1975, South Vietnam already had 5 times the average income of the North. Unfortunately, it did not get the time. It did not get the time because the 1973 Paris Accords, like the 1953 ceasefire in Korea, had to be enforced by the clear determination of the United States to return if they were violated. North Korea knew it, that if they attacked South Korea that the U.S. would return, and that there was no point. Yet, in 1975, Congress, dominated by Democrats like John Kerry, not only cut off aid to South Vietnam, but passed legislation prohibiting the U.S. from intervening if it was attacked. This was not only an invitation for the North Vietnamese to attack, but it told the South Vietnamese soldiers and civilians that they could expect no rescue and that there was no point in fighting. So Biden has followed a similar path in Afghanistan. His error is not a desire to withdraw people. That is a desire he shared with former President Trump, but it's not his desire today. It is rather that in order to withdraw, he needed an agreement, and in order for an agreement to work, he needed it to be of some value to the Taliban. So if the U.S. was going to withdraw anyway, then what need had the Taliban for an agreement? If the U.S. was not going to attack them no matter what, why should they have kept their word? Biden, by telegraphing his indifference, has destroyed whatever leverage not only the United States had, but also our own Afghan allies. It is a tragedy, and a completely unnecessary one. People, I want you to understand that we've got so much content for you available on our website. If you go to our website at amac.us, or you download the AMAC News app right there on your smartphone, you can be kept up to date on articles like this and others. We're keeping an eye on things, and we're working very hard to protect and preserve the great America that you and I love today. That's it for today, folks. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next time. Like, follow, and share this podcast, and let everyone you know that there is an organization fighting for you. We are AMAC, the fastest growing conservative organization for all Americans, especially those 50 and older. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Better for America podcast. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.